Have you ever wondered how close we are to a nuclear war that could potentially wipe out civilization as we know it? Now, let's delve into the catastrophic effects of such a war. Picture this. In the immediate aftermath of a nuclear exchange, millions of lives would be lost. Cities would crumble into dust, and the loss of infrastructure would plunge societies into chaos. But that's just the beginning. The damage inflicted by a nuclear war goes far beyond the initial impact. The environment, our life-sustaining backdrop, would suffer immensely. Radioactive fallout would contaminate the air, water, and soil, rendering vast swaths of land uninhabitable, perhaps for centuries. The biodiversity we cherish and rely upon would be shattered, leading to the extinction of countless species. And then there's the potential for a nuclear winter. The smoke and dust from nuclear detonations would block out sunlight, causing temperatures to plummet. This sudden and severe climate change would trigger a cascade of ecological disasters. Crops would fail worldwide, leading to mass starvation. To give you a sense of scale, let's consider some numbers. According to scientific estimates, a nuclear war involving 100 Hiroshima-sized bombs, which represent less than half of 1% of the world's nuclear arsenal, could cause up to 2 billion deaths over a decade. That's nearly a quarter of the world's population. These catastrophic effects are not just theoretical, they are a real possibility given the current state of our world. We live in a time where over 9 countries possess nuclear weapons, with thousands of warheads amongst them. The potential for misunderstanding, miscommunication, or simply madness could ignite a nuclear catastrophe. The stakes are high and the time for action is now. Understanding the dangers of nuclear war is the first step in preventing it, because when it comes to nuclear war, the only winning move is not to play. These catastrophic effects are not just theoretical, they are a real possibility given the current state of our world. But just how close are we to this terrifying reality? Let's delve into the facts and figures to give us a better understanding of the current nuclear situation. As of now, it's estimated that there are nearly 14,000 active nuclear weapons in the world. This number is down from the height of the Cold War when there were over 60,000 nuclear warheads. But don't let this decrease fool you. The destructive power of these weapons has only increased over time, and a single warhead can cause unimaginable destruction. Currently, 9 countries possess these formidable weapons. The United States and Russia hold the lion's share with approximately 90% of the world's total nuclear arsenal. These 2 nations are followed by France, China, the United Kingdom, Pakistan, India, Israel, and North Korea. Each of these countries has its own unique set of circumstances and motivations, which can complicate the global nuclear landscape. The potential for the use of these weapons is a complex issue, influenced by a myriad of geopolitical factors. While every nuclear-armed nation has policies in place that dictate the conditions under which they would use their nuclear weapons, the possibility of a deliberate or accidental launch is never zero. The risk is especially high in regions of political instability or where tensions between nuclear-armed nations are high. Moreover, the emergence of non-state actors, such as terrorist groups seeking to acquire nuclear materials, adds another layer of danger to an already precarious situation. These groups do not adhere to the rules of state diplomacy, and their actions can be unpredictable, further escalating the risk of a nuclear incident. In conclusion, the world's nuclear situation is a ticking time bomb. The fact that these weapons exist and are in the hands of multiple nations increases the risk of a nuclear war. While steps have been taken to reduce these arsenals and promote disarmament, the threat remains real and imminent. We must continue to strive for a world free of nuclear weapons, because the alternative is too horrifying to contemplate. So, what is being done to prevent this potential disaster? Good question. Let's dive into the world of nuclear disarmament and the challenges it faces. Efforts are being made globally to curb the spread of nuclear weapons and promote disarmament. A key player in this is the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, or NPT. This international treaty, first opened for signature in 1968, has the objective to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and weapons technology, foster the peaceful uses of nuclear energy, and further the goal of achieving nuclear disarmament. However, as with any global issue, it's not as simple as it seems. The NPT has been subject to criticism. Some nations argue that it creates a divide between the nuclear haves and the have-nots, and that it doesn't do enough to promote disarmament among nations that already possess nuclear weapons. Another notable effort is the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, a treaty that bans all nuclear explosions for both civilian and military purposes in all environments. It was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 1996, but has yet to come into force due to the non-ratification by 8 specific states. These treaties and other efforts symbolize the global recognition of the immense destructive power of nuclear weapons and the need to prevent their proliferation. But they also highlight the challenges faced in achieving a world free of nuclear weapons. These challenges include, but aren't limited to, geopolitical tensions, national security concerns, technological advancements, and a lack of trust and transparency among nations. While these efforts are commendable, the reality is that we are still far from a world free of nuclear weapons. It's a complex issue, requiring cooperation and commitment from all nations, big and small, nuclear and non-nuclear. It's a journey that we're on, and every step, no matter how small, brings us closer to a safer, nuclear-free world. While these efforts are commendable, the reality is that we are still far from a world free of nuclear weapons. Politics play a huge role in the threat of nuclear war. But how exactly? Well, it's a complex interplay of factors. Political tensions, power struggles, and conflicts between nations can escalate to dangerous levels, bringing us to the brink of nuclear war. We've seen this happen in history, and it's a chilling reminder of the power politics holds. One of the most prominent examples is the Cold War, which spanned from the late 40s to the early 90s. This was a time of intense political tension between the United States and the Soviet Union, 2 superpowers with nuclear capabilities. Their ideological differences and competing global interests led to a period of arms race, where both nations stockpiled nuclear weapons as a show of strength and deterrence. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, a direct result of these tensions, brought the world to the edge of nuclear war. Thankfully, diplomacy prevailed, but the risk was all too real. In today's world, the dynamics have changed, but the threat remains. Political conflicts continue to fuel nuclear tensions. North Korea's nuclear program, for instance, is a cause for global concern. Despite international sanctions and diplomatic efforts, the country's pursuit of nuclear weapons continues, driven by its political objectives. Similarly, the ongoing conflict between India and Pakistan, both nuclear-armed nations, is another instance where political tensions could potentially lead to a nuclear exchange. Their decades-old territorial dispute over Kashmir has resulted in several military confrontations, raising fears of a nuclear conflict. And let's not forget the role of international politics. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, while aiming to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons, is often criticized for reinforcing the power imbalances between nuclear and non-nuclear states. This can lead to resentment and defiance, further complicating the nuclear landscape. In conclusion, politics is deeply intertwined with the threat of nuclear war. The decisions made by leaders, the conflicts between nations, the struggle for power, all these political elements can tip the scales towards a nuclear conflict. The political landscape is volatile, and this volatility increases the risk of a nuclear war. So, what does all this mean for the threat of a nuclear war? Let's take a moment to retrace our steps. We've journeyed through the chilling realities of a nuclear war, the catastrophic destruction it would unleash, and the irreparable harm it would inflict. The severity of such a war is not something we can afford to overlook. A single spark could ignite a chain reaction, leading to devastation on an unimaginable scale. We then delved into the current nuclear situation. We examined the world's nuclear arsenals, the nations that possess them, and the alarming fact that enough nuclear weapons exist to annihilate life on Earth several times over. This is a sobering truth that underscores the urgent need for action. Our next stop was the complex world of nuclear disarmament and proliferation. We explored the ongoing efforts to reduce the number of nuclear weapons worldwide, the progress made, and the enormous challenges that still lie ahead. Despite the steps taken, the road to complete disarmament is steep and full of hurdles. The role of politics in nuclear war also came under our lens. We saw how political maneuvering, power struggles, and diplomatic tensions can influence decisions around nuclear weapons. The political landscape, both domestic and international, can significantly shape the threat of nuclear war. So what's the takeaway from all this? The threat of nuclear war is not a relic of the past. It hasn't faded into oblivion with the end of the Cold War. Instead, it's a menacing shadow that continues to loom over us. It's a reality we face, a reality we must confront head-on. This threat is not just about countries, leaders, or military might. It's about us, about our future and the future of our planet. It's a threat that transcends borders and generations. The threat of nuclear war is real and present. It is a threat that we must take seriously and work tirelessly to prevent. Only through concerted efforts can we hope to pull back from the brink and ensure a safer, nuclear-free world for future generations.